hopefully everybody is totally pumped after that impromptu dance party. But my name is Melissa. So hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. And I thought I'd start just by kind of telling you a little bit about myself. So I'm a designer, and for 10 years of my career, I worked in the corporate, in-house, pharmaceutical type of job, and it was not really great. It was kind of like this a lot. But then about a year and a half ago, I ended up getting whisked away to the magical world of startup design, which is where I am now. So now I work for a company in Philly. It's a tech startup, and it's called Curalate, and it is the marketing suite for the visual web, which means we help brands sort of make sense of their images on visual social media platforms like Pinterest or Instagram. And it's awesome. I love going to work every day. It's super exciting. But actually, that's not really what I'm here to talk to you about. I'm here to talk to you about a different part of my life, which is semi-related. I'm kind of what you would consider a serial hobbyist. I have had so many hobbies over the years. I've done things like knitting, where I made a hat and one fingerless mitten. I did rock climbing for a little bit until I realized that you need muscles to do that, so that didn't work out well for me. And for a long time, I collected postcards, which seems okay, but I actually didn't travel for them. I just went to gift shops and bought books of postcards, so it was actually a really lame hobby. But about 2 years ago, I ended up finding a new, incredibly fulfilling hobby, and that's entrepreneurship. So I really believe that the more people that become hobby entrepreneurs, the greater the explosion of innovation that we'll have in the future. So today I want to talk about why entrepreneurship is a hobby that you all should consider as well. So let's talk about what entrepreneurship is and stuff. It's a really long word that took me like a year to learn how to spell, and there's lots of vowels, and it's very French sounding. But what is an entrepreneur, right? So an entrepreneur is a person who organizes, operates, and assumes the risk for a business venture. Yawn, like that sounds terrible. Why would anybody want to do that as a hobby? It's like Dullsville, USA. So I'm not surprised that maybe it's not like someone's first choice for a hobby. And who do we think of when we think of entrepreneurs? Well, we think about people like Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, like all these really wealthy but also kind of crazy guys. But really, who else is an entrepreneur? So we have the local dry cleaner, or the girl that you bought a print from on Etsy, or the kid who's programming an iPhone game in his parents' basement, or the genius who realized that blankets should really have sleeves, because they totally should. Like, brilliant entrepreneurs, right? So there was a study done called The Anatomy of an Entrepreneur, and they looked at some demographics. And these are just a few of them that I thought were really interesting. So the average age of company founders when they started their first company is 40. Fewer than 1% came from extremely rich or extremely poor backgrounds. 70% were married when they launched their first business, and 60% had at least one child. And then 75% had worked as employees at other companies for more than 6 years before launching their business. So you might have this idea in your head of what you think an entrepreneur is, but really it could be anybody. So I feel like the common theme among these people is that they've had an idea that they acted on. So I really want to propose a new definition of entrepreneur as a person who attempts to turn their idea into a reality. So now let's think about this notion of an idea. We've all had them, right? We all have those ideas, whether it comes from an unfulfilled need that we have or just this desire to create something. But we've all had those moments where we thought, oh, I really wish that this existed. And then maybe you take that idea and you Google it and you realize, oh wait, it actually already does exist. Or maybe 40 of them already exist, because that's happened to me a million times. But that's not the important part. The important part is that you're generating these ideas. So I thought that this was kind of a funny infographic. It's the top 10 places where entrepreneurs have had a eureka moment. I don't know how shower is not in here, because isn't that the place where everybody has their brilliant ideas? But I think that this study was done in England, so maybe they spend their bathroom time differently than we do, because 41% on the toilet? Really? Like, maybe that could be me that's not like that. So anyway, you might think that creating the idea, coming up with your idea, is the most difficult part of entrepreneurship, but it really doesn't have to be. So one of the most interesting and funnest idea generation sessions that I've ever seen was with a group of girls who were about 8 to 14 or so at Philly's Tech Girls Summer Pre-Camp. So Tech Girls is an organization in Philadelphia that teaches young girls to embrace the power of technology, which is really important because tech fields are heavily male-dominated still. And so Tech Girls is aiming to sort of bridge that gap. So their summer camp is a really cool program where they teach girls how to build a tech company from idea generation to launch and everything in between. So I was there to help out with their pitch session kickoff event, where it was basically 16 girls who had never met each other before, who were totally shy and didn't speak for like the first half an hour. And they were there to pitch an idea in hopes that it would be selected to work on during this summer camp. So the really cool thing about it was that you didn't have to pitch an idea. You could just join somebody else's team if you wanted to. But a few of the more confident girls got up and shared their ideas, and then instead of intimidating the other girls, it encouraged them to also share ideas that they would just think of on the spot. And by the end of the session, every single girl had shared at least one idea, a lot of them 2 or 3. And these were ones that they just kind of thought of while they were there. And they weren't like trivial little ideas either. They were things like, there was a girl who ran track and she wanted to keep tabs of her runs via an RFID chip in her shoe, and then have an associated app that she could sort of like document everything with. And then there was a girl who used to take her dog on long walks in the city, but on hot days her dog would get really thirsty. So she wanted an app where dog-friendly business owners with water bowls outside could mark on a map where they were, so that she knew if her dog was thirsty, she could stop at one of those places. So these were really like awesome, well thought out ideas. So when you're sitting there and you're trying to come up with an idea, you just need to be like these girls. You need to let go of your inhibitions and see what comes to mind. So let's see, okay, wait, I'm gonna go back a little bit. So the important thing about what happens when you have these seedlings of an idea is that you need to share them, because if you hold on to the ideas, they're not gonna be able to breathe, and getting feedback is a really important part of the idea generating process. So in order to illustrate this, I'm going to tell you about one of my ideas that I had. So a few years ago, I was at a design conference with some of my friends, and we were going to some events at night, and a lot of these events happened to have open bars, so we were kind of attending all of these things, and by the end of the night, myself and 4 of my friends shove into a cab, and we're going back to the hotel, and the cab is kind of swerving down the Chicago streets, and I start not feeling so great. And so I think you probably know where this story is going, but there I was in the back seat with 3 of my friends sitting next to me, and I got sick all over the door of the cab, and it was humiliating and awful, and I had to pay the cab driver $50 because he had to go clean his car, and it was just really, really terrible. But from that terrible moment, launched an idea. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, people carry around those little pocket packs of tissues. How come you can't find barf bags anywhere? Like really, the only place you ever see barf bags are on airplanes. And I've never gotten sick on an airplane, and I almost always feel sick in the back of a cab. And not just because I'm going to open bar events, but just generally. So then I was thinking about all the different people who could benefit from something like this. Maybe parents with small children because they're always getting sick, or maybe pregnant women with morning sickness, or anybody in a fraternity or sorority would totally be into this idea, right? So obviously the idea is not to get sick, but you want to be prepared just in case you do. So I went back home from my conference and I was telling all of my friends, I'm like, guys, I've got this great idea. There need to be these designer pocket barf bags that you can buy in stores. And so I told everybody, and it was fun because the feedback that I was getting was really great. So one of my coworkers was like, I have this brilliant idea for the name of your parent company. And he said, Boot and Rally Co. is totally it. Like, is that not perfect? And I was like, gosh, that's totally perfect. So then I was talking with some friends about possible taglines that the company could have, and this one was my favorite. It was party like an animal, barf like a lady. So it was just like a really fun sort of creative process, right? And it's really good, especially if it's an idea that you're actually going to pursue, to get the people in your life on board, because it's going to be something that you're passionate about and you want them to be bought in. And hopefully you have people in your life who are honest with you and can kind of provide you with the feedback that you need. Am I ever really going to make my pocket barf bags? I don't know, probably not, maybe, but it's an idea that I'm keeping in my idea trunk, and it's cool to know that if it is something that I want to do, I have the support of people behind me. So now, let's say you have your idea. So now what? Well, the difference between a regular person and an entrepreneur is the determination to turn your idea into a reality. So that anatomy of an entrepreneur study that I mentioned earlier also looked at some of the barriers to entrepreneurship, and these were the top ones. So these are all like totally legit, and I can understand why this would make people nervous about jumping into entrepreneurship. However, when you're doing it as a hobby, this isn't quite as scary, because you can do this alongside a traditional job. You can do this in your spare time on nights and weekends. Really, the only pressure that's there is the pressure that you put on yourself. So now I understand that one of them, particularly raising capital, can be kind of tricky for a lot of people, because yes, even hobbies cost money, and big dreams can mean big bucks. But luckily nowadays, it doesn't have to be that big of a barrier anymore, thanks to crowdfunding websites like Kickstarter or Indiegogo. There are a lot of sites like that available now for the independent entrepreneur. So I'm going to take a little side note here and tell you something else about me. I really love mac and cheese. I think that mac and cheese is like the ideal food, right? If it is on a menu at a restaurant, I'm buying it and I'm eating it, and it is awesome. Now, I don't have a very refined palate. I am perfectly happy eating Kraft dinner 5 nights a week. But when I see something like this, that just looks amazing to me. Like, doesn't it look like something you want to eat right now? Or something like this, which is actually a vegan recipe, and I'm not a healthy eater, but that looks so good. So these two things are actually menu items that my good friend Min is planning for her possible future mac and cheese food truck in Washington, D.C. So this is my friend Min. And Min has worked as a content strategist for a large, well-known hotel chain for years when she was suddenly and kind of unexpectedly downsized recently. So when that happened, she was looking for other corporate work. But in the meantime, she started thinking and was like, the one thing that really makes me happy is cooking for other people. And as one of those people that she's cooked for, I can attest to the fact that she is really good at it. So she started doing some research into what it would take to launch a food truck. So now, Min wasn't unemployed for very long. She ended up finding another job pretty shortly after, which she starts soon. But this is now her hobby. This is now something that she wants to continue to look into. And she's doing the research, and she plans on launching a Kickstarter to raise the funds to get the ball rolling. And now doing a Kickstarter is really cool because it's like immediate market validation, right? Like, you have these people determining whether or not your idea should live. So if your project succeeds, that's great. If it doesn't, maybe that's a good sign that you need to think of another idea or revamp your idea a little bit. So anyway, let's say that you actually don't need funding. You just want to jump in and get started on a project. So this is kind of how I got started in entrepreneurship. 2 years ago, on a complete whim, I signed up for an event called Startup Weekend. And Startup Weekend is very similar to that Tech Girls Camp that I talked about earlier, where you form a business from idea to launch, except it happens in a crazy, intense 54-hour period. So I had no idea what to expect, and if I did, I probably wouldn't have signed up, but I ended up doing it anyway. Thank goodness I had no idea. And I went and I pitched an idea for a mobile app that helps you make plans with your friends, because it was something that I was having trouble with at the time. And we made it. On Friday night, we formed a team, and then we spent the whole weekend building a product, creating a business plan, doing market validation, and then on the last night, we pitched it to a panel of judges, and we came in second place, even though I think we should have been in first place, but I'm not totally bitter about that. But anyway, it was so much fun, and I got hooked immediately. It was my first taste of entrepreneurship, and that was it. I was totally bought in. So I loved it so much, and I loved being around those people who were so passionate about their ideas that I became an organizer for Startup Weekend in Philadelphia. And so I helped to organize the last few events. And I just really love helping to facilitate the birth of these projects. And so I'm going to tell you about one of them. So I have this friend, Josh, who lives out in Colorado, and because he had heard of my experience with Startup Weekend, he flew out to the Philadelphia one last October. And he had one of those, wouldn't it be great if moments. And so the idea that he pitched was this. He said, wouldn't it be great if you went into a bar or a store, and when you checked in on Facebook or Foursquare, that location was able to kind of pick up your data from Spotify or Rdio and play music based on the music that you like. So basically everywhere you go, it's like your walking soundtrack, right? So this is the idea he pitched. He worked on a team, they built it, they did everything, and they ended up winning Startup Weekend last October. So I caught up with him recently, and I was asking him, and he said he's still working on it. His project is called Swaylist, and he's still building it. Now Josh has bills to pay, so he's doing his full-time job, and then this is his hobby. This is what he's doing on the side, and he's hoping that fairly soon he's going to be able to launch this product. So, obviously it's been a year, and he's still working on it. And the reason why is because, let's face it, life is really hard. There are things that get in the way. There's a lot of things that keep you busy, and it's hard to give time to a side project usually. I'm actually experiencing that now, but the good thing about doing this as a hobby is that there are no deadlines, there are no timelines. You get to work at your own pace, and if something comes up, you need to put it on the back burner. There's nothing stopping you from picking it back up again when you have time. So that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years. When I did that Startup Weekend with back 2 years ago, I met my friend Chris, and he and I decided that we got along really well. We wanted to build fun projects together. He's a developer, I'm a designer, it just worked really well. So one time we were talking about a project, and we started talking about doing chores. And the thing that we said was that both of our spouses seem to think, or they actually do more chores than we do, and my husband will completely agree with this. However, we thought that the chores that we did should be worth more because of their degree of difficulty. So, because of that, we launched our project, which is called Chore Score, which is a mobile game where you compete against people in your household to see who does the most chores, and you get points for the chores that you actually complete. So, this is the project that we've been working on. When we thought of this, we thought it was awesome and fun, and we loved it. And it was great for us because neither of us have made a mobile app before, so it was an awesome way to learn how to do that. But then we had momentum in the beginning, and then I got a new job. And then a few months later, he got a new job, and then he moved, and most recently I moved. And all of these things keep happening that's kind of stalling our project. But it's imperative that we take those steps forward, because we have a goal and we want to make it to that goal. So this is our hobby. This is my current hobby, and we're going to get there at some point, because the whole idea of being able to download something that I helped to create from the App Store is like so exciting, and I can't wait until that happens. So I don't totally call myself an entrepreneur. I think that's, I don't know, it's kind of a weird French word and stuff. I just think of myself as like a creative person who likes to make things, whether it's a hand-bound book or one fingerless mitten or something like an iPhone app. I just like the idea of building things, and I really believe that that is the essence of entrepreneurship. And thanks to technology, it's becoming easier and easier for people to be hobby entrepreneurs like myself, and I can only imagine that as time goes on, more people will start to embrace the accessibility of this. So my hope is that everybody will be out there sharing all of their brilliant ideas, and then the world will get to see some pretty amazing things that otherwise would have been hidden inside all of us. Now, I'm not saying that it's easy, because it's definitely not, but starting something is not as hard as it used to be. So I think everybody should start something, anything. It could be something that's meaningful to you, whatever, just you have ideas. I know that you do. The only thing that's holding you back is yourself. And once I realized this, I discovered an amazing new, incredibly fulfilling hobby, which I love. And it sure beats the hell out of collecting postcards. Thank you.